Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to this week's episode of That News You Care About. It's always weird when I try and introduce this show because I don't have like a base document for it like Logan does. But this is a weekly podcast where we sit down and talk about the big news story of the week in gaming. Typically, I am your host this week, Trevor Starkey, and joining me is the biggest New York sports fan west of the Mississippi, I think is what he usually goes with for you, right?
I think so, yeah.
Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Doing good, Trevor. Doing good. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Logan is out this week. He is, I believe, out in New England doing some, just kind of vacation stuff. So you get me and Cameron this week. We're going to be talking all about the TripWire Interactive CEO story that blew up over the last few days and had relatively fast resolution certainly sooner than I was expecting. But before we dive into that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast everywhere you can. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like our wonderful Patreon producers do. Today's main topic of the show, we're probably only going to do the one primary topic today, but that is the TripWire Interactive CEO steps down after supporting the Texas abortion law. And I've pulled this article from CBS News because when a gaming thing reaches actual mainstream news outlets like CBS News, then you done fucked up. So obviously, for those that were not aware of what went down, on September 4th, John Gibson, who's the CEO or the now former CEO of TripWire Interactive, tweeted out, quote, "Proud of #US Supreme Court affirming the Texas law banning abortion for babies with a heartbeat. As an entertainer, I don't get political often, yet with so many vocal peers on the other side of the issue, I felt it was important to go on the record as a pro-life game developer." And then basically just a whole bunch of people took him to task for you can be a pro-life game developer, but don't support this draconian bullshit law that Texas passed and the Supreme Court shadow supported, not even through the typically proper channels. Tripwire.
Well, that's even where things get even more difficult. There's a lot of people reading into the Supreme Court's inaction in taking it up. There's a lot, there is a future where the Supreme Court does hear this law. But basically what they've done is they basically said, we're not going to supersede lower courts in taking it up. It has to go through lower courts first.
Yeah.
And the hope is that this will get taken out and taken care of, because there's a whole lot of a noted thing. I think it was actually Brett Kavanaugh who actually said this law has some serious issues because it has some this creates a lot of open-ended things because it's a poorly written law. And he said some stuff that is that it's really open to a lot of different things, and it's okay, cool. Didn't know that was going to be part of it too. But on top of that, I also want to say you even said it yourself. Other people are you can be pro-life, you just don't have to support this asinine policy. I know pro-life people, dude, who are not in support of this law because they're there's no caveats for
for rape or incest. Yeah.
In rape, incest.
They throw a bounty on there for anybody that
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
There have been plenty of things. We're not going to dive down the whole rabbit hole of that law and that just bullshit fuckery that our friends in Texas are now having to deal with. And it's one of those things. Admittedly, I am just disinclined to return to Texas anytime soon, even to see friends like Logan or Jazz out there, or Christian.
Oh yeah,
or
no,
Frank.
for sure.
I'm just.
Up until a short while ago, when I got my job, I was looking for jobs out there, man.
Yep.
But when when this looked like it was going to pass, I was I'm really glad I didn't find a job out there, because I would not want to live in a state where this is a thing. Arizona, as conservatively ass backwards as we can be sometimes, even we have enshrined laws with like we have very strict laws when it comes to abortion here, but abortion is available to anybody who's been a victim of rape, incest, or their health is in peril, whether it's the health of the child, where the child won't live to full term, or if the mother's life is in danger. Like there are several caveats here in the state of Arizona that, as ass backwards as we can be sometimes with how conservative things can get, even here, even then, that's still a thing. So,
yeah. So for those that don't know, TripWire Interactive is the publisher behind games like The Killing Room 2, which is a popular first-person shooter, kind of in the lead up to this. They're also the ones behind Maneater, which I've espoused multiple times on our various podcasts as a game I really enjoyed last year. And then their recent, probably biggest hit is Chivalry 2. The medieval like brawler warfare type game, and so a whole bunch of people kind of like went under fire on this one, or not went under fire, but like shot their shots at Gibson, kind of taking this stance as the head and the CEO of this company, with basically campaigns to instructing people, hey, here's how to completely unfollow anything from TripWire Interactive on Steam ever again. I saw that making the rounds. The many, obviously, employees of TripWire were out there kind of speaking out against this, as well as studios that collaborate with TripWire, including Torn Banner Studios, the team, I believe, behind Chivalry 2, as well as Shipwright. Shipwright was the first one I saw, in response to this tweet, where they basically wrote out, while your politics are your own, the moment you make them a matter of public discourse, you entangle all those working for and with you. We have worked closely alongside the talented and passionate developers at TripWire and your partners for the last 3+ years. We know it is difficult for employees to speak up or act out in these scenarios, and they may not feel comfortably to speak their minds. It is regrettable, but we feel it would be doing ourselves, your employees, your partners, and the industry as a whole a disservice to allow this pattern to continue without comment. We started Shipwright with the idea that it was finally time to put our money where our mouth is. We cannot, in good conscience, continue to work with TripWire under the current leadership structure. We will begin the cancellation of our existing contracts effective immediately. That was basically a day after the original kind of tweet that started everything out. Basically them walking things back, and then eventually kind of gets around to yesterday, Monday, Labor Day, when TripWire Interactive released a formal statement on their Twitter account as well as on their official website, stating that they were appointing a new interim CEO, Alan Wilson, as the company moves forward. Quote, the comments given by John Gibson are of his own opinion and do not reflect those of TripWire Interactive as a company. His comments disregarded the values of our whole team, our partners, and much of our broader community. Our leadership team at TripWire are deeply sorry and are unified in our commitment to take swift action and to foster a more positive environment. Effective immediately, John Gibson has stepped down as CEO of TripWire Interactive. Co-founding member and current vice president Alan Wilson will take over as interim CEO. Alan has been with the company since its formation in 2005 and is an active lead in both the studio's business and developmental affairs. Alan will work with the rest of the TripWire leadership team to take steps with employees and partners to address their concerns, including executing a company-wide town hall meeting and promoting open dialogue with TripWire leadership and all employees. His understanding of both the company's culture and creative vision of our games will carry the team through this transition with full support from the other TripWire leaders. So basically, dumbass said a thing and is dealing with the consequences. However, I will also throw the caveat out there.
He fucked around and found out.
Yeah, I will throw the caveat out there that while he is no longer like the CEO of the company, he is still like one of its co-founders and probably still has a solid stake in the profits that the company will continue to make moving forward. Because I have not seen anything indicating that he is fully removed from his connection to the organization. So he'll stop making his CEO salary, but he'll probably still make points on any games that are going out through the TripWire thing, which is still unfortunate.
Yeah, at some point in like some backroom thing, or not backroom, but like some what's the term I'm looking for here? But essentially, like on the back end, he'll make something probably on the back end of game sales. But even then, it probably will not be like. And here's the thing: they might also be in the process of removing him from being like from that position as well.
Yep.
So, but that position in particular takes time.
Indeed, yeah.
Because if you're talking about somebody who's like has a large vested percentage in the company, divesting them from their percentage of the company's ownership is extremely expensive, because you don't only have to, one, you have to pull in lawyers, which just is an arm and a leg in and of itself.
The easiest way to do it is they buy him out, and that's going to cost the company a ton of money, or the other co-founders a ton of money, and this guy being the kind of like vocal proponent that he was for this, and doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to like gladly take a buyout. So he'll probably, it would certainly be interesting to see how that all falls through. But I will say that like the action of going from his asinine comments on Saturday to him being removed effective immediately on Monday from that CEO role is way faster of any kind of action than I was anticipating. We've talked a lot over the course of the last couple of years on problematic executives at gaming companies, like being temporarily removed from their role, or being moved into a different role. Like most notably, we talked about, of course, the heads behind Season, that game. I don't remember the Scavenger Studio, I believe, is the company there. We talked about them kind of dealing with a lot of abuse claims, and like the guy in question. And the guy in question was like temporarily removed during an investigation, while the CEO, his at least one-time partner, who had potentially covered up things, stayed in power, and then eventually he was kind of cleared of charges or whatever and reinstated into a different role within the company. Most recently, of course, we talked at length about Steve Gaynor from Fulbright stepping down from his like day-to-day management role, but still being associated with the Open Roads game as a writer, and still being a member of Fulbright despite repeated calls for kind of his removal. So the fact that like they're at least getting rid of this guy, like there was probably enough of a campaign, or they saw enough of enough traction over the weekend to warrant saying, hey, keeping him on is going to be detrimental to our bottom line, when partner companies are coming out there and immediately and making it very public that they're going to do whatever they can to discontinue working with the company. Clearly, like there were fiscal reactions to that. So
yeah, and here's the thing: this might have been like our first experience externally of this kind of behavior and commentary from somebody. But who knows how long it's been going on? Where as the leadership of the company, how many is this in it? You can imagine that if you started this company with your friend, and then it turns out that your friend was like, you're like, yeah, he's conservative, but we're talking, this is 2000, 2010, 2009 conservative, and like liberals hanging out together. It's fine. Like, we have disagreements, but it's okay. And now you shoot forward a decade and things are completely different. Mm-hmm. Certain people have taken things to the extreme. So who's to say that this was not the final last large straw that has broken the camel's back versus, who knows? Like, I can imagine that if he tweeted something out like this, how often he probably said stuff internally to that effect, that it just might be like, listen, we've told you once, we told you twice, now you publicly put it out there. You're out, like, vamoose.
Yeah.
This could be part of a culmination of a lot of things, but I think what really comes down to it is, one, the fast turnaround over a weekend. Not only a weekend, but a busy week, a holiday weekend, and a holiday weekend that also had a PAX going on. Now, granted, it's a PAX with lower attendance rates because of COVID, and there are like protocols they put in. But like, this is a guy. But by the way, he was there at PAX West. He was up there in Seattle, and he was tweeting about being up there. And so while this dude is up there, officially representing his company, he tweets out something like that. So it's like even worse.
Yeah.
It's not like he was sitting in the comfort of his own home in Texas, just like chilling, hanging out, doing his job, or like it was a long weekend, so he hadn't been in the office for a couple of days. Could be a couple drinks. Nope, he did it while he was busy at PAX representing his company that he was the CEO of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Just like on every possible level, this stinks of it reeks of not understanding what is going on within this law. This law is not about being pro-life. This law is about taking control of and domineering, and this law is about so much more than just quote unquote being pro-life. It has such drastic, dangerous consequences to it on almost every level and every facet of this law. You have that going on, and then but people are just so blinded to this idea of pro-life. I understand a lot of pro-life argument when it comes to a lot of things, a lot of when you have friends and family who struggle with pregnancies and stuff, it can be very there's a very different kind of emotional context to those who have long suffered from wanted pregnancies not working out and seeing unwanted pregnancies terminated, as is the complete right of the person terminating them. But I understand where a lot of people are coming from when they say that they're pro-life in regards to what they've dealt with in their personal lives. But at the same time, it's critically important that we respect the rights of those who decide whether or not they want to have children. And an unwanted pregnancy is an unwanted pregnancy, and at that point, we're talking about 6 weeks is ridiculous, outlandishly ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much against the law myself, and it's I don't think this podcast is the right place to dive into.
Probably not. No, especially because we're
really
guys,
pro-life,
right?
pro-choice merits of anything. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull us up out of this now. But
I appreciate it. I was I kind of
yeah,
we kind of sunk in. I kind of let us into that, but I also wanted to make the point hey, also as two guys, our positions on said argument are very it always feels weird talking about this subject as a guy, because these laws don't affect me personally, as a person. They don't target me personally. And so it feels very strange to do anything more than advocate for more important voices.
They don't affect me personally either, but I'm going to absolutely advocate for my friends that it does affect, and I think any kind of legal precedent that people are trying to implement on this is just horseshit. So
100%.
Yeah, fuck all that noise. You want to be pro-life, but don't try and govern that to other people's decisions who don't follow the same life guidelines that you do. Circling back to this, it's just the latest instance of a guy getting out there, putting his foot in his mouth, taking this of all things to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and be political about this thing. I'm not usually political, and I make games that are all about killing people, but sure, I'm going to be pro-life in this regard. Was just a complete dumb fuckery sense from the guy. And
did you see the so apparently he put his songs from his own Christian metal band into the Killing Floor 2? Did you see anything about that?
No, I've not. I don't follow enough of their game. Maneater's really the only time I'd ever even heard of TripWire Interactive, apart from any of this other stuff. I'd heard a little bit of Chivalry, and I'd probably heard the name Killing Floor, but that was in passing, it was never a game I was going to check out. So yeah, I had not seen that, but I saw a ton of people kind of like highlighting the absurdity of his statements in the lead up to his kind of departure from the company. But that doesn't surprise me at all that he was like throwing his own stuff in there and probably getting paid for that and double dipping or whatever. So I'll be curious if they pull those songs from the game.
Oh man, one sec, I gotta find it here, because it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Is it?
Keep going. Keep going.
I mean, I have little else to say on this matter. I've exhausted.
Ooh, here we go. Found it.
My anger towards John Gibson, and he can just fuck off and eat shit.
Here we
for all
go.
I care.
John Gibson put his own Christian metal band in Killing Floor 2, including the song Disunion Reconstructed, which features these lyrics. Quote, "Who gives a shit about politics? I'd like to share a thing or two about heretics. You see, evil infiltrated our government, and it wear a masquerading of sentiment. I forgot to tell you that you can't pray at school. I hope that you know that you can pray after school, and please don't mention Christ on the job. Wonder why I'm feeling like I have been robbed. Conqueror to control the people. What is the first thing you do? Guns, please take them away so they can't resist you. Who took God out of the news? Took God out of God, or took the people out of God? Took all their rights away. Now when the people push back until they break, rip children from the womb, before they ever had a chance to see they're alive, look into their unborn eyes." The lyrical genius of former CEO and President John Gibson in his lyrics of the Killing Floor 2. So,
Yeah.
what a turd! What an absolute turd of a human being.
Yeah. I will not be sad at all that this guy's gone down. I shout out to our friend Andy Cortez for tweeting out something to the effect of like, how long until this asshole shows up on a conservative podcast talking about cancel culture or something like that. I'm like, yeah, it's probably exactly what's going to happen.
TikTok, it's coming.
He'll go collaborate with David Jaffe or something like that.
God.
And he'll be a special guest for the Quartering or some other fuckwad like that. So yeah, that's really the big story that felt worth addressing and discussing this week. Obviously, we stand in opposition to the Texas law and hope that it can be struck down through the appropriate channels soon, or that like companies like Lyft will just go out there and be like, all right, screw it, we're just gonna like pay for the legal defense fund for anybody that does somehow inadvertently get caught up in this kind of bullshittery. So
or you have like companies like GoDaddy who pull their internet services from the quote unquote watchdog snitch website.
Yeah.
Also having people shout out to all those people who flooded it with
the Shrek memes on TikTok claims. Or whatever. Yeah, so
with all the Shrek memes and whatnot. Thank goodness for people out there who are willing to take these things that people put out there to make people's lives more miserable and turn them against them. So thank goodness for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we will continue to update on this podcast if things develop further. If we find out that John Gibson has been fully removed from the company at some point down the line. But again, in the meantime, I still have no intent of supporting TripWire stuff because it's probably going to go to that guy, and that sucks. And it's unfortunate that shit like that happens because there are a bunch of people at that company that didn't want for any of this that just got caught up in this asshole taking his privilege and spouting it out on the internet. So, like, if you want to be that asshole, go ahead and be that asshole in your private, like, bullshit life, or do whatever. I mean, no, don't even do that. Don't fucking be that asshole. Like, realize the absurdity of that law, and stand with any kind of rational person against it instead of showing yourself for the jackass that you actually are. So, all right. Any other articles or any other news or anything you wanted to give a shout out to or touch on, Cameron? Or
yeah, I did.
Okay.
Have you seen the Better Ubisoft, which is of course the advocacy group made up of current and former Ubisoft employees who are pushing for greater changes at Ubisoft in general? They put out a response to CEO Igor Manko being set up as the CCO, the creative chief officer of Ubisoft. Have you seen that at all?
The last I saw from a Better Ubisoft was them basically saying it's been months and we've gotten no response. So I didn't know if that was in. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. If that was in response to.
No, this is from today earlier. Oh. So yeah, their response basically. So Igor Manko was set up to be the new chief creative officer of Ubisoft. A Better Ubisoft response was, quote, "We look forward to working with the new CCO, Igor Manko, probably butchering that last name, my apologies, to create a better Ubisoft, and hope that he is willing to work closely with employees and ERGs to do this. We also hope that we will finally see a meaningful response to the demands made by over 1,000 of his colleagues from him. We point him back to the letter signed by over 1,000 current and former colleagues and our reply to Eve's response, which makes it clear that what we want to discuss with him. We can only trust that his application and appointment were done so under the intense scrutiny due to the actions of his predecessor. However, those actions need to be addressed, and we hope to see Igor take meaningful steps to repair the damage done by his predecessor. However, we also want to highlight that this executive hire comes without insight on Eve's promise to redefine the leadership of the editorial department and avoid having a singular creative officer. Quote, I will take on the CCO role temporarily as we work to define and organize the leadership of the editorial department. During this time, I will also personally oversee a complete overhaul of the way in which this team works. My goal is to create an inclusive and open culture that embraces more diverse and multidisciplinary expertise. I'll communicate more about these changes in due course, end quote. There is no clear expression of the creative process, and there is a shocking lack of diversity in VPs. We acknowledge the hiring of BioJade Adam Granger, but not much progress has been made beyond that, especially given that 2 additional VPs were meant to be hired. Currently, as it stands, the creative team at Ubisoft is composed of white people who are of uniform cultural backgrounds. This leaves us with a lack of confidence in the future shape of the editorial team, with Patrick Plourde continuing to remain in his role as VP editorial despite the multiple misconduct reports filed against him, while Serge Husko, former right-hand person, is still involved in the recruitment of high-level creative positions. So, basically, the major thing coming out of that is that while it's great, okay, cool, you have a new CCO, you were supposed to be changing things up where there wouldn't be a single creative officer in the editorial department, and also the editorial department is still not diversified. It's still made up of the same people, including a person that has multiple misconduct allegations put against him. So, this is rough, man, because, here's the thing, this is coming back around to it, I've stayed true to my core principle of, I've stopped supporting Blizzard, I don't support Riot, and, I've gotten to the point now where, I just don't feel like I can support Ubisoft, which sucks, because, we have friends that work there. It's been a great supporter of a lot of the, creators and content creators and streamers that, we know and care about. But when it comes down to it, at this point, man, I just don't know, this sucks. This sucks so much.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's
I mean,
You
it's
know?
unfortunate, and
Yeah.
it's just a yet another iteration of the like support the art and the creators or whatever. Like, because yeah, it is like, I mean, just like I said with Tripwire, it's like it's unfortunate because you know that there are good people at this company that you want to support, but they're also not going to be the ones that make any kind of profit off of you purchasing a game. They got their salary or whatever, and that's where their money is going to draw the line. So you don't want to put your money in the pockets of the overly compensated like executive level officers. Anyway, yeah, the last thing I had seen on this, so yeah, this article that this post that you've shared that I'll include in the show notes was like from 7 hours ago. The last thing I had seen was probably around the time that all of the Tripwire stuff was flaring up, because I saw this post from September 4th, like while I was basically at Disneyland or whatever. I saw this post saying, "We have received no response to our key demands 38 days after 1,000 current and former Ubisoft employees signed an open letter to management. Hashtag a Better Ubisoft, hashtag end abuse in gaming." So it's like I saw that and immediately was like, yeah, I mean, that sucks that you've seen no response. I Because you're not a formal union, so they don't have to respond. They didn't respond for a year. So like, unless you guys are gonna potentially, and obviously unions aren't gonna fix everything, but like that's how you get collective bargaining, is getting a seat at the table as a a union representative or something like that. So until they were willing to make that step, they're still going to be at the whims of the rest of the company kind of saying, "Oh yeah, okay, here we hired a new person," and that person's going to say they're interested in working with you until they're not, and there's absolutely zero benefit for them if they don't, at this point. So,
Dude, I'm just like, at this point, like, more needs to be said. Game developers need to unionize.
yeah. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but there was also the article, the Game Informer article or interview with like the heads over at Naughty Dog, who basically were like, "Yeah, I mean, crunch is all about people really just want to work hard on these games." And it was like, "Fuck you, fuck
Oh my
off,
gosh,
Neil
yeah.
Druckmann.
Fuck off.
How do you
Fuck
how do you
off.
see the conversation going around here, and you're still that fucking stupid and tone deaf?" Neil Druckmann and Evan Wells are just like, they are, like continued proponents of crunch culture, and fuck that noise too. And I have little interest in supporting Naughty Dog until they're gonna actually try and make changes around that. So,
Dude, I'm 100% with you there, man. I'm really sick of it. I'm so sick of all this bullshit. Especially when, God, it reminds me of... It's weird that, like, the one company that heard the criticism and actually, like, took steps about it was fucking 2K.
yeah,
Like, Rockstar Studios being the one company that was like, "Oh, yeah, there's these issues with crunch, okay." And then, like they come back later and everybody's like, "Yeah, no, like, things changed." And it's like, wow, that's so great to see. And then we don't see that from pretty much any other company.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fucking frustrating
yeah,
that the fucking GTA guys are the guys who are like not the proponents of great art like Naughty Dog. It's like, geez, dude, I'm so tired of. And the worst part is that like Naughty Dog makes great games, but they all like, it's difficult to. I want to grab the stick that's up Neil Druckmann's ass and turn him around and give him a talking to about crunch at this point.
yeah. It's
Because like he just doesn't get it. Like,
you want to be a
he and
workaholic
everyone
for
else
yourself.
don't get it.
Like that's still not cool, because you as the head of that company is like, that says something. And like, think about the fact that mentality drove your partner Bruce Straley out of the industry. Like, he went on an extended sabbatical after Uncharted 4 and then just like didn't come back.
Quit.
So
Yeah.
like, burnout is real, and I think your studio is weaker for it. The number of turnover, the amount of turnover that has come out of that kind of stuff is just absurd.
How many great game developers get burnt out? Like, there's an untold number and an unwritten number about how many game developers' lives are like they have to make choices. Because here's the thing: like sometimes they make choices about because it's their health or the crunch, it's their marriages or crunch. Like people lose marriages, people lose families over this shit, man, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Your game being out 3 months earlier isn't worth what you put your team through. And obviously, as everybody says, crunch really only comes into effect when pre-planning didn't do its damn job.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have things set in stone going into production from pre-production, you as a producer, Neil Druckmann, have failed. I'm sorry, Neil. The reason you have terrible crunch is because you failed as a producer early on, and now you're expecting you're expecting the unhealthy and unnatural work ethic that, and also it says something about it. Neil Druckmann does this. He's a workaholic, sure. But who does he promote, right? He promotes the people, well, this person put in so much more time. They're working harder than everybody else. We need to promote them.
Yeah.
Dude, you're just promoting people with the same unhealthy mind state as yourself. Like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And, like, reading that article really pissed me off, man.
Yeah.
Because once again, what's the solution to this problem? Unionize.
Yep. I mean, that's it.
Like,
That's
goddamn it.
the best bet they probably have, and it's unfortunate, but all right. Well, I think that can probably do it for this episode, where we've just like this comes up every now and then, where I just kind of sit there and I'm like, I kind of hate this show at this point, where it's just like every week we're talking about like negative things, to the point that like Logan basically has to plan weeks where we just talk about non-news to keep ourselves sane, which is just not a fun element of this industry.
Well, I mean, this is the same kind of stuff like we talked about. Like, dude, I almost left this, like, our side of the industry because of this shit. Like,
yeah,
like all this stuff, like all these sorts of things coming out at once just hit us at a really bad time. And like, I almost left. Like, you pulled me back from literally walking out of this industry forever because of how fucking exhausting it is dealing with this bullshit. On just our level. Not even talking about on the level of like people who are actually in the trenches dealing with this bullshit.
Yeah. And again, yeah, like we are incredibly privileged white guys that aren't like feeling the brunt of any of this shit. But it's still like, like we're empathetic to the people that are, and we feel for our friends who suffer these asshole bad managers, be it the Druckmanns of the world or whoever, that are taking advantage and abusing their employees' passion. I mean, this is something I was dealing with back in like my theater days, where it was like we were preying on the fact that these are people who love the arts, so they're gonna work 60-hour weeks to support the arts for pennies, because they really want this stuff to happen. And it's like, yeah, but also fuck you, pay me a livable wage. So I hate that. That's basically capitalism in a nutshell right there. People in power preying on everybody else, and it's weird like turning increasingly into a socialist at the age of 36, but here I am. So
dude, the turnaround in the last in the last 16 years for me. Are you kidding me? Dude, I was 14 and I went to a Sean Hannity live show.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Right? I know, right?
That is the worst thing I've ever heard.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think I've ever talked about that publicly. Yeah, I was 14, and for my birthday, I went to a Sean Hannity live show.
Gross.
Like, I got him to sign my book, his book. I read conservative, like, people don't understand. I've been politically active since I was basically about 7 or 8, as far as, like, knowing what's going on. And I fell deep into, like, the early, like, 2000s conservative, pipeline on that stuff, man.
I think I don't remember if it was like Rush Limbaugh or Rudy Giuliani, but like while I was working at a Sam's Club or a Costco or something, like one of those guys came through and did a book signing, and I got like a book signed for my dad for a Christmas gift or something like that. And like that's like one of the most shameful things I have in that, is like that I bothered to support that. However, I will say Like years later, when I became much more like just politically liberal and active, I the my grandfather who I've spoken about, in the past, that I am not on any terms with anymore. But we would butt heads politically, and I remember getting him like Hillary Clinton's autobiography for Christmas one year just to spite him, just because he was an ass. And I knew he would hate that as a gift. So I was like, yeah, read this, old man. Like, read this. I don't give a shit what you think about it, really. Just, haha, here's your Christmas gift. Bye. So that's, yeah, there's like how it came full circle, and I at least kind of like did something in the other end of the spectrum.
Man,
Anyway.
people like when I say I was a neoconservative teenager, people just do not understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And now it's like cool, like oh man, and like to look back on that also and be like, now I'm 31, I'm queer, I'm out, I'm very liberal I'm beyond liberal. I'm to the point where I would actually I actually call myself a progressive collectivist, because communism usually just gets people's knickers up in a bundle.
Mm-hmm.
So instead I use some different language in order to make them be like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, aha, communism strikes again.
There you go. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of That News You Care About. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
I do want to give a shout out, some extra credit stuff to specifically that Game Informer article that came out about, that we briefly mentioned, that we really didn't go too much into, about talking about crunch culture. I think it's super important to hear and really look at what people are saying in regards to people look at Neil Druckmann not just as a producer or as a studio head for Naughty Dog. They look at him as an icon of the industry. This is somebody who sets trends and sets the standard for a lot of stuff in this industry in regards to practices and work ethic. And so for him to say what he said, I think should be read, and you should really be able to take a fine look at this is what some people actually think and believe, and understand the importance of that, as well as just Google, if you are curious at all, if you happen to be a developer, look into unionization. Unionization is an important thing that has affected and been better for multiple industries, multiple and here the biggest thing is the worst thing that happens out of unionization is that you finally actually have a seat at the table. That's the worst thing that happens out of it. There are only benefits to having a union in regards to that. So, and be aware of where anti-union information is coming from, because if you trace it back, usually it comes from the company itself.
Mm-hmm.
So a heads up about that.
Yeah. All right. Any personal things you want to plug?
We did an awesome episode of that Nerdy Site Show that came out Monday. Trevor and I talked about Shang-Chi. It was basically 45 minutes of Trevor talking about Star Wars, or about Disneyland, and his swing through vacay there, I guess is a way you can put it.
Yep.
Last minute trip, I should have said. That's what I was going for. Last minute trip out to Disneyland, and then we spent the next hour and a half talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We go really into how we feel about that film there, and Trevor saw it again yesterday.
Yep.
And Trevor, any update to that feeling?
I mean, still
like it even
still real good movie. Yeah,
there you go.
Really dug it. Yeah. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will echo the shout out there for That Nerdy Site Show, our Shang-Chi spoiler cast episode. Also, our Let's Plays this week. Today's Let's Play Tuesday's Let's Play was we built or Let's Build a Zoo, which is a fun little upcoming Steam game that's basically a zoo simulator kind of game, but with very sprite based animations and stuff. So I had a good time with that, as well as Thursday's Let's Play this week is going to be Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which I booted up and played on my new Super NT that I bought from Analog, which is basically like a modern console that will play Super Nintendo cartridges, and is not emulating the games. It's like actually reading the games just as the Super Nintendo would have done. So yeah, I as somebody who's been like, who heard months ago that Zombies Ate My Neighbors was going to make its way to PlayStation, and then every few weeks see that it never did. It missed its release date and seemingly never got certified by Sony for actual release. I finally said, screw it. I'm just going to play the original Super Nintendo version of the game. So that'll be this week's Thursday Let's Play. Then I also want to shout out my friends over at the Castle Vault, who had me on to talk about Iron Man 3 on their show this week. They're one of their podcasts. Talking about Iron Man 3 as they go through all of the MCU movies as this season of the Castle Vault. So go check out any of those things. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to rate, subscribe, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that by going to patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you for joining me, Cam, to fill in for Logan this week here on That News You Care About. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.